Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's press conference. If you're watching online, wherever you are, welcome. My name is David McNeil. I'm a member of this club and a ex-chair of the event committee of the FCCJ. We're here today to discuss a very important issue, not just in terms of union and the rights of unions in Japan, but also just the rule of law. Since 2018, 81 members of a small Osaka union have been detained by police, many on what labor scholars call legally dubious charges. Over 70 members of the All Japan Construction and Transport Solidarity Union, the Kansai Regional Ready-Mix Branch, otherwise known in short as Kannama, the Kannama Union, have been prosecuted of crimes that include forcible obstruction of business for handing out flyers, and attempted extortion for checking workplaces to ensure they are complying with labor laws. Both of these are considered routine labor practices. One union member asked his employer for a certificate to prove he had a job to enroll his child in a kindergarten school. He was arrested in 2019 for attempted coercion. Yakuza thugs have allegedly been used to harass union members. In addition, multiple members of the union have reported intimidation and coercion by police during custody. Police from multiple prefectures have been involved in this case. Some of the union members have been told, I should say, that the investigation would stop if they quit the union, the Kannama Union. Employers have been told to shun the union. These tactics appear to have worked. Over 800 members of the Kannama Union have quit since its peak. It was at 1,300 before this all began. We're here very privileged to have three speakers who know this issue very well to come and discuss it with us. First up is Yuichi Kaido, who's a very well-known attorney at law, of course. He's going to speak first, give us the background to the case. Second up is Mieko Takenobu, who is an ex-Asahi journalist. She has just wrote a book last year about this struggle called Shingin Hakai, which means, of course, wage destruction. And the third speaker is Takeshi Koyano. He's a member of the union, and I think Kaido-san will go first. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
My name is Yuichi Kaido. I'm attorney at law, and I am a lawyer for state compensation lawsuits case by Kannama. In short, we are just doing a normal labor movement, but we are arrested. So we demand compensation from the government. This is a book by Ms. Takenobu's Shingin Hakai. We skipped the detail of the case. Please see my presentation. Kannam has worked in solidarity with small and medium enterprise to improve working conditions and raise workers' wages. Kannama is an industrial and occupational trade union that organizes the workers in small and medium-sized enterprise that manufactures and transport ready-mixed concrete. In 2022, they celebrate 58 years since its formation. In Japan, the overwhelming majority of the labor unions are in-house labor unions. Kannama is a very rare case. Kannam fought against giant general contractors in solidarity with the small and medium-sized enterprise. As a result of these efforts, ready-mixed concrete price and workers' wages in Kansai region have continued to be around 50% higher than the other region, Kanto other region in Japan. The bargaining power of the general contractor who purchased ready-mixed concrete has been substantial, and as a result, ready-mixed concrete has been bought at low prices. As price competition for ready-mixed concrete intensified, inferior concrete made with inferior aggregate or excessively diluted concrete has been traded, resulting in buildings that lack earthquake resistance and adversely affecting the safety of citizens. In 1994, the Osaka Regional Cooperative Union was established to cover all of Osaka Prefecture. 3 years later, it has been achieved an 85% organization rate. In 2015, the Osaka Regional Ready-Mixed Concrete Association achieved a nearly 100% organization rate. Ready-mixed concrete prices have risen by more than 40% over the past 3 or 4 years, and are now selling under unprecedented conditions at around 18,000 yen. On the other hand, ready-mixed concrete prices in major metropolitan areas such as Tokyo and Nagoya have remained at around 11,000 or 20,000 yen. Collective industry collective bargaining negotiations have been held between the Osaka and Hyogo Ready-Mixed Concrete Managers Association and Kannama. Association promised that freight rate would be raised if the price of ready-mixed concrete were to increase. However, they failed to fulfill this promise, continuously refusing to increase in freight rates and wages. Against this backdrop, Kannama demanding an increase in freight rates and the democratization of the cooperatives organizational management. The Shiga, Kyoto, Nara, and Wakayama Ready-Mixed Concrete Cooperative, as well as the Bara Cement Transport Cooperative and Ready-Mixed Concrete Transport Cooperative largely accepted the union's demand, and the strike ended after 4 days. But Osaka Regional Cooperative Union contended that the strike is an obstruction of the business and a criminal act. In Japan, labor union strikes are permitted by law in Japan. Article 28 of the Japanese Constitution guarantees the right of workers to organize, bargaining collectively, and act collectively. It is understood to include the freedom to strike, as well as conduct rallies and distribute leaflets by labor unions. According to a Japanese government survey in 2018, the labor union organization rate was only the 17%. And in 2017, there were reportedly only 300 disputes. In 1974, the number of the total dispute was over 10,000. The strike has drastically decreased. Osaka Concrete Cooperative Association did not even attempt to respond to the indefinite strike by the union. It declared that the strike constitutes the obstruction of the business. The executive board of the Osaka Concrete Cooperative colluded with the group led by Hiroyuki Seto and others that had repeatedly engaged in hate speech and began the campaign to the union as a being an organized crime group by provoking them at the strike site, staging crashes, and recording and distributing these crashes over the internet. On the other hand, they removed from their ready-mixed concrete production quotas those operators who attempted to maintain the labor management relation with Kannama. In the course of its investigation, the Shiga Prefecture Police urged the ready-mixed concrete suppliers to cut ties with Kannama. It is clear that this crackdown is aimed at dismantling the system of cooperation between industrial labor unions and cooperatives. Compliance activity conducted by the Kannama is carried out by the union and alleged to constitute the condition of the force in the crime of obstruction of business and notification of harm in the crime of extortion. In these activities, 2 or 4 members of the ready-mixed concrete branch usually visited the construction site to point out the violation of the law at the construction site and demand that the violation be corrected. This is the indictment against the defendants addressed the minor issues. The matter pointed out in the indictment are not all minor. At the warehouse construction site or the Cherio, the manufacture of the drinking water, union members pointed out that the lorry tires were worn down to the point where the brakes might not work, that the bumpers of the lorries had come off, and that the site supervisor was not qualified. This is the press conference of the state compensation case. Kannama fights back by filing state compensation lawsuits. I am a lawyer of this case. On March 2019, the lawsuit for the state compensation was filed with the Tokyo District Court. Aforementioned recommendations by the police and the prosecutor towards the arrested union members and their families to withdraw from the union is a major pillar of the case and intended to make clear that this crackdown is a denial of the basic labor rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Point 1, police and prosecutor are demanding that union members withdraw from the union. Point 2, arbitrary long-term detention against Vice President of Yukawa repeatedly arrested and detention have been made by subdividing cases into smaller ones. Point 3, wrongful arrest of Executive Committee member Nishiyama with the intention of obstructing of the examination of the witness in another state compensation lawsuits. Point 4, court of bail condition prohibiting union activities such as entry into union office. Bail conditions that deny union activity violate the principle of the freedom of association. This is the symposium photograph. Significance of the Kannama incident. An atmosphere in which people cannot speak out free pervades Japanese society. In Japan, workers are all caught up in the inter-company competition, making it difficult to fight on an industrial scale. It is becoming increasingly difficult for workers to unite. A true labor movement cannot be built without overcoming the barriers of the company-based union structure. There are some recent progress. All of defendants were released by bail. July 2020, 21st, Osaka District Court found member not guilty of extortion in the Taiyo Ready Mixed Concrete case. December 2021, Osaka High Court delivered verdict of not guilty in Kamo Ready Mixed Concrete case. On January 17, 2022, video recording of the prosecutor pressing a member to leave the union was shown at the trial. On April, also the videotaping, another case was shown at trial. And bail condition restricting the access to the union office were also changed in 2021. So, and the conclusion. The crime of the conspiracy was not directly applied in this case. However, it is an attempt to establish the crime by branding as a criminal offense, a part of the labor union's routine compliance activity and exercise of its right to collective action, rounding up union's member involving this activity, and establishing a conspiracy among the parties involving through the collection of the digital information. In this regard, it must be seen as an advent of the large-scale conspiracy type crackdowns. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Takenobu-san, you're next. お願いします。
Thank you. My name is Mieko Takenobu, and I have been covering this case for 2 years and published a book, which title is Chingin Hakai, as McNeil-san said. And I'd like to make a brief presentation about how media has acted in the process of this case. Then look at Let me speak in Japanese from now. And Joyce-san, thank you. いいですかね。はい。どっか行こうかな。はい。全画面にしなきゃいけない。
Just to tell everybody, today's interpreter is Mary Joyce. Sorry, Mary, I should have introduced you from the start.
No problem. Thank you. はい。ですね。この事件では、実はメディアは大きな役割を果たしています。
So in regards to this case, the media is actually playing a very significant role.
一つはマスメディアが全く沈黙しているということです。
The first is the fact that the mass media or mainstream media is maintaining complete silence on this issue.
で、これに対して SNS は過剰なぐらい氾濫してこのテーマを伝えています。
But in response to that, or in contrast to that, online in social media, there is a very extreme actually discussion around this issue.
そのソーシャルメディアの担い手というのは一体どういう人たちなのかということが一つのポイントになります。
And who, in fact, is behind this social media discussions about this is one of the key points of this factor.
その前にそのメディアがこの事件の中でどのように推移してきたかについて説明しておきます。
But before going into that, I would like to introduce briefly about how the media has been reporting about this case and its surrounds.
2017年の12月、神生支部はゼネラルストライキを打ちました。
In December of 2017 was when Kannama conducted their general strike.
2018年の1月に、ですね、大阪広域協同組合、これ雇用主側が総会を開いて、この神生支部という組合の対策として10億円の支出を出すことを決めました。
And then in January 2018 of the following year, the Osaka Ready Mix Concrete Cooperative Association, which represents the employers, held an extraordinary meeting where they reached an agreement to spend 1 billion yen in countermeasures against the union.
このお金を使ってヘイトグループが大阪の駅前で街頭宣伝を行ったりキャンペーンを行ったりしたということは先ほどカイドさんがおっしゃった通りです。
And using these funds, this was spent to give money towards hate groups or racist groups who then conducted different public activities, campaigns against the union, for example, in front of train stations in the Kansai region, in front of Osaka Station, as Mr. Kaido has mentioned.
そしてその2018年同じ年の7月に、この組合員の大量逮捕が始まりました。
And in July of the same year of 2018 was when the mass arrest of the Kannama union members began.
産経新聞や NHK を中心として警察発表をそのまま報道するかのような大きな報道がこの日行われました。
And from this time, there was large reports in the media, particularly the Sankei Shimbun and NHK, which were based purely or just repeating exactly what was in police announcements.
それ以外には以後マスメディアはほぼ沈黙を守りました。
However, while there was that reporting at the time, since then the mass media has remained practically silent since then on the issue.
SNS が大量に発信された一方で、マスメディアが警察の発表以外はほとんど沈黙したことによって、関西生コン支部の活動について、警察側の報道だけが一人歩きする形になりました。
As a result of the enormous discussion about this issue or mass dissemination of information on social media, but the mainstream media only publishing the police announcements and no other information since then, it has meant that the information that is known indeed about the Kannama incident and about what was happening was indeed only based on what was in these police announcements, and there has been no further reporting than that.
ただその中でようやく2019年の11月に自治体の議員の一部と、元議員ですね、こういった人たちの抗議声明が出ました。これは、労働組合に対する不当な弾圧であるという抗議声明です。
However, finally, in November 2019, so the following year, there was a protest statement which was issued by a group of local government legislators and also former politicians, saying that this was indeed wrong or illegal suppression of union activities.
続けて労働法学会の有志78人が声明を出して、これは労働基本権に対する重大な危機であるという声明を出しました。
And following this, a statement was issued by 78 scholars who are members of the Japan Labor Law Association, saying also that this was indeed going against Japan's basic labor laws.
ですからそれまでは SNS による一方的な警察側と経営側の情報だけが広く流されている状況の中で、ようやくここで労働側の視点からの声明が出されたわけです。
So this meant that until this date, until this time, it was really only the unilateral information on social media which was regurgitating the police announcements and so on that had been out in the public eye. However, from these statements, it was the first time that the stance of the labor union side started to also be represented for the first time.
これによってようやく一部のマスメディアもこの声明を引用する形で、その労働側からの視点、これは労働基本権の侵害ではないかということが分かるような報道ができるようになったわけです。
And so it was finally, as a result of these statements being issued, that the mainstream media finally started to discuss the incident, discuss the issue in relation to also representing the position of the labor union as well by quoting the statement and also referring to the basic labor rights.
そういう過程で私が雑誌にこの事件についての連載記事を出し、かつ一番最近になっては、マクニールさん、今日司会されているマクニールさんがユニオンシティブルースという、記事を書いてくれましたので、英文でその概要を見たい方はぜひ読んでいただけたらと思います。
And so through such a process, I myself then published a series of articles in the journal Sekai or World in relation to this issue. And then most recently, David McNeil, who is chairing today, also published an article in the FCCJ's magazine entitled Union City Blues. So for those of you who would like to know more about this issue in English language, we'd recommend you to take a look at this article.
ということで、この事件というのは一方的な労働組合は暴力集団であるという経営側とそれを逮捕した警察側の情報だけで流されてきていたためにですね、ほとんどそのことについて人々が知らない、または間違った情報を与えられていた。これがこの事件を非常に労働組合にとって不利にしたということなわけですね。
And so because of the fact that there was indeed a lot of unilateral information on social media, which was representing the union as being a violent organization, something which was being stated from the position of the employer's side or the manager's side, who were the business running side, and also the police announcements and so on, it meant that the general public generally did not either know much about this issue, or the information that they had was based on this false or unilaterally sort of one-sided information, which has meant that it has been indeed very unbalanced or unfortunate representation of the issue.
例えばここに日本語ですが一覧でどのような記事が SNS に出たかが出てきます。これは後で皆さんでご関心あれば読んでいただきたいと思いますけれども、暴力集団であるとか、それから野党と密接な関係があるという野党叩きの記事とかが続々と出てくるわけです。
And so on this slide, it has a list of the different titles of news and reports about the Kannama case as well. Sorry, this is only in Japanese, but if you're interested, we encourage you to take a look closely. But it, for example, includes titles that are referring to Kannama, the union, as a violent organization, or making claims that it is very closely related to the opposition party and therefore critical of it in this sense, as trying to be critical of the union in a way of being critical of the opposition party at the same time as well.
言ってみればフェイクニュースの羅列と言っていいような情報拡散が行われたということです。
It really could be said that indeed this was a kind of dissemination of fake news about this issue.
これを発信した人たちというのは主に3つぐらいに分かれますけれども、一つが経営側ですね。それからもう一つが経営側に近いストに参加しなかった労働組合、それからもう一つが非常に重要な役割を果たしたのが瀬戸博之瀬戸という人物です。
And so who is it that is actually spreading this information on social media? This can be largely divided into three categories or three parties. The first being the association, which represents the business operators. The second being the group of the three unions who did not participate in the general strike and are allied or affiliated with the business operators. And the third, who played a very significant role in this, is an individual called Hiroyuki Seto.
はい、この人はですね、安田光一さんという著名なジャーナリストによると、ヘイトグループの一員であるということで、ネオナチに、その近いという、そういう極右の人です。
And so this last individual, according to reporting by a renowned journalist called Koichi Yasuda, Mr. Seto is a member of a hate group in Japan, extreme right, who could be referred to as very close to neo-Nazi group.
この瀬戸さん自身が自分のブログで、自分はこの仕事を、大阪広域競争、経営側ですね、経営側と提携し、経営側から報酬をもらって月70万円で請け負った仕事ですというふうに書いています。
And Mr. Seto himself on his online blog actually has mentioned that he was conducting these activities as a result of signing a contract with the Osaka Koiki, the association, the cooperative of the business operators, and receiving indeed 700,000 yen per month in compensation for conducting this job on their request.
そういう中でですね、自治体の議員や労働法研究者が、声明を先ほど言いましたように出したということ、それがかろうじてこのような激しいフェイクニュースの流れを多少押し返したわけですけれども、
And so the statement, which was issued by the local government legislators and labor law researchers mentioned before, was able to, at least in a small element, a small amount, go against this strong fake news which had been disseminated.
いまだにマスメディアの大きな流れにはなっていません。
However, it is still not being widely reported or gaining the attention of the mass media.
どうしてマスメディアは沈黙を守るのか。
Why does the mass media choose to remain silent on this issue?
もしマスメディアがその時に情報を強力に発信していれば、これほどの大規模な弾圧が起こったかどうかは分かりません。
If the media had indeed been reporting about this issue more widely from the beginning, it is questionable about whether such strong suppression of the union activities would have actually occurred.
ここに何点かその理由について挙げてみました。
On this slide, I have listed some potential reasons for this.
一つは、警察報道というのは非常に警察に依存しているので、警察に不利なことを書くと情報がもらえなくなるという心配をマスメディアの人たちはしています。
And one of the reasons for this is media reporting, which is including information from police announcements, is very dependent on the information which is released by the police. Therefore, there is a fear or concern on the part of the media, of the reporters, that if they write things which are not in the interest or not in the agreement of the police, then they will stop being able to receive information from the police.
もう一つは、労働担当の記者というのがマスメディアにはいるわけですけれども、警察担当の取材に後から入って介入することは難しいという壁があります。
Another issue is that in Japan there are reporters who are specifically assigned to be covering the labor beat, and it's very difficult for them to go and intervene and report on police-related issues.
もう一つが、ニュースが大変商品化されていて、受けるニュースが、必要であるというふうに思われているということがあります。
And another issue is the commercialization of news as well, seeing that there is an expectation that it is only news that will be popular, which will be received well by the public, that is worth reporting.
労働組合というのはもともと日本ではすでに地味な存在になっていますし、しかも今回のように SNS で先に不利な情報が大々的に流されていて、何か怖いことが起きているという印象を持っている中では、これは商品としては受けるニュースになりません。
Labor unions in Japan, in the first place, are indeed not really an existence which stands out very much. And then when we have this kind of situation where there has been a negative information campaign disseminated on social media, it means that many people hold this image of them being very scary, for example, which makes it difficult to commercialize this kind of news as a news product on the media.
おまけに SNS が発達してくると、現場に出るより SNS で情報を検索して、それにかなり左右された報道が行われる傾向が広がっています。
And in addition to this, as there has been more development, of course, of social media, there is more of a tendency now for reporters to not actually go out in the field, but just to search online and base their reporting on what it is that they are reading there.
記者によってはカイト弁護士に対して、このようなひどいことが報道されているのに、そこを押して記事を書けると思いますかというふうに質問をしています。
There have even been some reporters who come to Mr. Kaido and asking him, well, this kind of terrible things are happening now, but do you think this is actually something that can be reported?
こういうような中で、その実態に合った報道というのが非常にしにくくなっているという現実があるわけです。
And these kind of factors are meaning that it is very difficult indeed, or less likely for media which is actually based on what is happening on the ground, based on this fact, to be actually reported.
最近大阪では日本維新の会が非常に大きな力を持っておりまして、読売新聞の大阪本社と大阪府が包括協定を結んで、共にメディアを発信していこうという動きも問題になっています。
Recently, there is, particularly in the Osaka region of Japan, a very strong influence of the Ishin no Kai, the Japan Restoration Party. There is also a situation recently around the media in Osaka where the Yomiuri Shimbun's Osaka headquarters and the prefectural government of Osaka have actually made a comprehensive agreement together to officially disseminate media together.
こういうような状況の中で、メディアがちゃんと発信するというのは非常に勇気のいることという状況になってしまっている可能性があります。
And this means that it is very likely that it actually takes indeed a great amount of courage for the media to be reporting accurately on these kinds of issues.
しかもこのようなマスメディアの沈黙を利用して、国会議員、維新の議員とそれから自民党の議員、一人は足立康議員で、もう一人は杉田水脈議員ですが、この2人の議員がそれぞれ神生支部についてこのようなひどい事件を起こした暴力的な団体であるということを国会の質問の中で発言しています。
And utilizing or taking advantage of these kind of negative campaigns on social media and so on, we are also seeing situations in the Diet as well, where members of the Japan Restoration Party, the Ishin, namely Mr. Adachi Yasushi, and of the LDP, namely Sugita Mio, utilizing this issue and representing Kanama, the union, as a violent organization, making statements including these kind of claims within questioning in the Diet.
足立議員は、マスコミがどうして報道しないのかというと、組合が怖いからしないというふうな、ねじ曲げた質問をし、かつ破壊活動防止法や暴力団対策法を適用すべきであるとはっきり述べています。
For example, Mr. Adachi of the Japan Restoration Party has made questions in the Diet such as, why is it that the media is not reporting about this? It is because they are scared, or it is because it is very frightening, or also saying that the laws in regards to prevention of destructive or violent activities should be applied in the case of Kannama as well.
また杉田議員は、そのカンナマが取った資金ですね、資金が野党に流れているとほのめかすことによって、カンナマ事件を野党叩きに使っています。
And Sugita Mio of the LDP has made statements that funds of Kannama, for example, are being sent to the opposition party, and therefore utilizing this issue, taking advantage of this issue as a way to conduct bashing against the opposition parties.
このように今回の事件というのは非常にメディア的にも特異な位置を占めていると思います。
So I think this shows that this particular incident, this issue, is indeed taking on a very distinct characteristic within the media.
労働組合叩きのためにさまざまな SNS が動員され、かつそれについてマスメディアが対抗を十分にできず、そしてその結果、正当な情報が流れていないことが労働組合活動を大きく阻害する事態を招いてしまったというふうに私は取材を通じて感じています。
And so we are seeing in this situation that social media is being mobilized in order to bash or criticize the unions. The media and the mainstream media is not able to sort of stand up against this and to report in a fair or accurate manner. This in turn is then having a damaging impact or suppressing the labor union activities themselves. This is a cycle of things which I have very much seen in my years of reporting on this.
ということで、忖度しなくても済む立場にあるメディアの方々が、海外メディアの方々がしっかりとこの事件を取材し、報道していただけることを心から祈っています。そのためにマクニールさんの記事もぜひ活用していただければと思います。以上です。ありがとうございました。Thank you very much.
And for this reason, I think that it is very important that media which is not beholden to these sorts of political challenges and so on, that is the international media, to be able to fully investigate and report about this issue. I hope that for that reason, you can indeed make the most or use Mr. McNeil's article, which has been recently published, and I thank you for your interest in this issue.
Thank you. Koyano-san, did you want to say something? Koyano Takeshi is an official with the union. お願いします。
皆さんこんにちは。小谷野武と言います。この組合の書記長をしています。
Hello everybody, my name is Koyama Takeshi and I am the secretary of this union.
私の組合は日本の全国各地で建設労働者と運輸労働者を組織しています。
And so my organization or our union is organizing workers throughout all of Japan involved in the construction and transportation industries.
カンナマ事件のカンナマ支部は生コン労働者を中心に関西地方で活躍する私の組合のローカル支部です。
And so Kannama is indeed the local branch of the organization of the part of our overall union, which is involved in the ready-made concrete industry.
この関西生コン事件は日本の戦後70年以上の労働運動の歴史にいくつかの新記録を打ち立てました。
The Kannama case has indeed led to new records in several different aspects within Japan's somewhat 70-year history of unions in the post-war era.
先ほど海渡さん、竹信さんが説明になったように、私たちの組合の組合員はこの関西生コン事件で延べ81人以上が逮捕されました。
As has been mentioned by Mr. Kaido and Ms. Takenobu, within this series of incidents, 81 or more than 81 members of our union have been detained.
しかも、このカンナマ支部の委員長は6回繰り返し逮捕されました。
And the head of the Kannama branch, the Kannama union, was arrested 6 times.
副委員長の湯川は8回繰り返し逮捕されました。
Mr. Yukawa, the deputy head of the branch, was arrested 8 times.
これほど大量の組合員がしかも繰り返し 逮捕された事件は日本の労働運動史ではかつてなかったことです。
So many union members being arrested and also repeatedly on multiple occasions is something which has not happened in Japan's labor union history till now.
もう一つは、長期拘留です。
Another aspect is the long-term detention.
逮捕された当時の委員長の竹という委員長は640日間も拘留されました。一度も保釈されることなく640日間拘留されました。
At the time, the head of Kannama, for example, was arrested and held for some 640 days without being released once during that time.
当時副委員長の湯川は8回繰り返し逮捕されて644日間も拘留されました。一度も保釈されませんでした。
And Mr. Yukawa, who was then the deputy of the union, was arrested on 8 occasions and held for a total of 644 days consecutively without receiving bail at all during that period.
この2人以外の組合の役員も拘留期間中は家族と一切の接見を禁止されました。組合の役員とも一切接見することができませんでした。
And other than these two, or including these two, but also other senior union officials who were arrested, who have been arrested as well, during the time of their detention, they have been completely forbidden from meeting with any family members and also meeting with other union members as well.
日本は民主主義国家を標榜していますけれども、まさに政治犯として扱われたと言っていいと思います。
And Japan is, of course, meant to be a democratic country, but indeed we are seeing these are really being arrested as political criminals in a way.
こうした大量の逮捕、長期拘留の間に、警察や検察は組合員たちにあからさまに組合を辞めるように仕向ける発言を繰り返しました。
And within the context of these mass arrests and long-term detentions, both the police and the prosecutors have been repeatedly conducting actions to try and force the union members to quit the union.
組合を潰すと繰り返し、挑戦的な発言を受けました。
Including also very challenging or belligerent statements saying that they will crush the union.
これらの発言については、最近先ほど海渡さんも紹介されましたが、2回にわたって検察官の取り調べの録画が刑事裁判の法廷で再生されて公になりました。
And as was mentioned by Mr. Kaido in his presentation, video recordings of the police making these kinds of statements to the union members have recently been shown within the criminal trial proceedings underway.
今私たちがこうした不当な組合潰し、憲法違反の組合潰しに反撃するために国家賠償請求裁判を起こしています。
And in order to go up against these efforts to crush the union, which is indeed illegal and unconstitutional, we are therefore now conducting a state compensation lawsuit.
この国家賠償裁判の中でも近くこの取り調べ録画が再生される予定ではないかと考えています。
And we believe that the videos of these police investigations and statements will be shown soon within this state compensation lawsuit as well.
警察や検察から違法な取り調べを受けた組合員は今日ここには来ておりませんけれども、皆さんからご希望があればいつでも直接取材に応ずることができます。
And so the union members who have been involved in these illegal activities or the targets of these illegal activities by the police and the prosecutors, while they are not present here at the press conference today, they are available anytime if there are any members of the press who would like to interview them directly.
今日本の民主主義と言われる国家の中でどれほどひどい労働組合弾圧が行われているか、ぜひ海外メディアの皆さんに報じていただきたいと期待しています。どうもありがとうございます。
I very much hope that the international media will indeed pay attention to and report about the kind of oppression which is now being conducted against the labor unions in Japan in this supposedly democratic state. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the three speakers. If I can just sort of summarize what I think or what I have interpreted from what you've said. This was a troublesome union. This was a union which was, in some ways, a militant union, which was fighting for better conditions for its members and was quite effective at doing that. Better conditions, better pay. And because it was quite effective, it was crushed and or the authorities attempted to crush it. And if I'm getting you correctly, this was done in a coordinated way. Coordinated means that it wasn't random, that it was multiple police forces, it was the prosecutors, and it also involved possibly the Osaka Concrete Cooperative Association. I wonder if you would sort of care to just speculate on who might have ordered this to happen, because I was told when I was doing my shuzai that multiple police forces cannot operate independently, that there must be some direction from above, and that seems to suggest that there was an order from the National Police Association in Tokyo. I wonder if you could just address that.
では質問の方を訳させていただきます。まず一つまとめとしてなんですけれども、やはり今回このカンナマがこのような形で弾圧されるという状況になったというのが、今までさまざまな形で、いわゆるその経営者にとって問題を起こしていたよりいい条件、よりいい賃金のために戦ってきたということで、それでかなり効果的なことになっていたということで、潰そうとしているというようなことが背景にあるかと思うんですけれども、これをランダムに行われているということではなくて、ある意味で組織的にされているような弾圧というふうには認識をしています。複数の県の警察または検察など、そして大阪広域の方からも複数の方面からその弾圧があるということで、これは一体どこからの命令といいますか、どこからの指示でこのような弾圧が行われているというふうに皆さんはお考えでしょうか。私も取材をしている過程の中でこのような形で複数の県の警察がこのように動いていくということは独自でそれができるのではなくて、やはり上からの、国の警察から東京からの指示がなければそのようなことはできないんだろうというような話を伺ったんですけれども、それはどこからどのような背景でそのような指示があったというふうに思いますでしょうか。
なかなか難しい質問ですけれども、私もですね、各その県警において捜査を担当しているのは公安警察であったり組織犯罪対策警察であったりするんですけれども、非常に連携が取れている。その一人の人の身柄を、他のところに移していくということが組織だって行われていますから、明らかにその各県の警察が連絡を取り合ってやっているということで、それをコーディネートできるのはやはり警察の組織のトップ、警察庁が何らかの形で関連しているというふうに私も考えています。
This is a difficult question to have an exact answer to, but I also believe when we look at which departments or which parts within each of the prefectural police are involved in this, it is those responsible for public security or for organized crime, and we see that they are in very close contact, very close communication with each other, and are acting in a very coordinated way, usually being able to to send people between each and so on as well. Therefore, in order for them to be acting in such a coordinated way and in such close contact and close communication, I do also believe that there must indeed be some kind of involvement or orders from the top, that is from the national police.
Thank you. Takenobu-san, do you want to speak to that question?
はい、ですね、私はちょっと、一般論としてベテランの警察官にこういったことは組織的にどのように可能なのかという取材をしました。でそうしましたら、そのようなことを確かに一つ一つの県警で勝手にできるものではなくて、一斉にやっているということは国の、何らかの、警察関係の、その指示があったという可能性が高いというふうに言っていました。予算は各自治体が出しているというよりもほとんどもう中央から出ている警察の取材、予算はですね。なのでそういう面から言っても出先機関のようなところがあるので、それはどこか中央で指示が出ているのではないかと、こういうような観測をしていましたので、その海渡さんの言っていることはそうなんだろうというふうに思います。
In sort of a general concept, or through my also research investigation and so on into this as well, considering how it would indeed be possible for this kind of level of coordination between the different prefectural police. I also see that it would not be possible for them to be acting independently or doing each of these on their own in that sense. For this to be coordinated in this way, that it is indeed very likely that there is some kind of orders or instructions from the National Police Agency as part of this. Of course, well, the budget for each of the prefectural police and so on is decided within each local jurisdiction. It comes from the national budget as well. So therefore, I believe, as Mr. Kaido has said, that indeed it is very likely that there is some kind of orders or the guidance in regards to this coming from the National Police Agency.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to pause to sweep the room to see if anybody has a question. We have some questions online.
オンラインの方でも質問届いてるんですけど、もし会場にいらっしゃる記者でご質問ありましたら、日本語でも英語でもお願いします。
はい、just took it aside. This question comes from Andrew Horvat, who's a freelance journalist, former president of the club. He says, this is to Takenobu-san, onegaishimasu. Is the Kannama case an isolated incident, or have you come across similar examples of union suppression elsewhere in Japan?
こちらフリーランスの記者、元CCJ の会長のアンドル・ホーバスさんからの質問です。竹信さんへの質問なんですけれども、今回のカンナマ事件というのは、一つだけの事件として考えたらよろしいでしょうか。それとも他にも同じようにその日本で組合に対する労働組合に対する弾圧などという他にも同じようなケースがありますでしょうか。
はい、他にも最近は労働組合活動をしたことによって逮捕されたっていうケースが地方では、かなり起きてきています。で、ただこれほど大規模に組織的にやったというのはやはり珍しく、それはやはりこの労働組合が非常に力が強い、対抗力が強くて、賃上げとか週休2日とか、それから女性組合員の生理の有給休暇の仕組みとか、いろいろなものをしっかり取ってきたということで、威力が強かったことが大きかったというふうに見るべきではないかと思います。
Recently, we have seen more and more cases in, for example, regional parts of Japan with people being arrested for conducting labor union activities and so on. There has been more of these occurring. However, I think the Kannama case, having it happening on such a large scale and in such a coordinated way is indeed something very unusual or something very particular to this case. And the reason for this, I believe, is that indeed this union was indeed very strong in terms of its appealing for its members and so on, both in terms of an increase in wages, also for different working conditions, working rights, for example, the right to menopause leave for female workers, female members of the union and so on as well. The fact that it did indeed have this strength and was standing up for the conditions and wages of its workers has made it the target of this coordinated fashion.
とはいえそういった個別の企業別組合ではなくて、カンナマ支部のように産業別労働組合というのは交渉力強いですから、これを潰そうという動きはもうあちこちでだいぶ前から実は起きてきています。なのでそのような政府の動きというものがここではっきり出てきたということではないかと思います。
However, that being said, since quite a while ago, there have been indeed activities. Kannama is quite unusual as a union, being that it is sort of across within the industry rather than based within a particular company and so on. Therefore, it has indeed a significant sort of bargaining power in regards to that as well. And we have seen since quite a while ago efforts to try and quash these kind of unions that do indeed have this effective method within the industry as well. So I think that the Kannama case is now meaning that the government's movements or intentions in regards to this are coming to the surface, are coming clear.
先ほどのこの弾圧事件はどこからの指令に基づくものなのだという質問がありました。これを示唆する一つの事実を示したいと思います。それは最初にこの事件が起こったのは2018年7月ですけれども、弾圧事件が起こったのはこの弾圧事件の指揮を執ったのは滋賀県警の羽田健一という当時の組織犯罪対策課のトップです。
And in regards to come back to the question of where the orders are coming from in regards to this overall case and so on, there is one fact that I would like to share in regards to this. The first in the series of incidents, or the first in the case of this, was in July 2018. And the person responsible for giving the orders, indeed, in regards to this was Mr. Haneda Kenichi, who was the head of the organized crime division of the Shiga Prefectural Police.
彼はこの弾圧事件を指揮したことのご褒美として現在は、滋賀県で2番目に大きい警察署彦根署の署長になっています。
And as a somewhat reward for leading, indeed, this movement against the union, he has now been given the position of number 2 at the Hikone Police Department, which is the largest within Shiga Prefecture.
なぜご褒美というのかというと、彼はこの弾圧事件を指揮する前に、東京で警察庁に出向していました。で、出向している時に女性のキャリアの職員にセクシャルハラスメントを加えて、そのセクシャルハラスメントは公務災害として認定をされました。
And sorry to correct, he's the top at the Hikone police station, which is the second largest in Shiga. And the reason for this is, well, prior to his giving these orders in regards to Kannama and so on, he had been sent to be working at the National Police Agency in Tokyo. However, at the time, he was actually found to be responsible for sexual harassment against a female career police officer within the agency, and this was found to be within the sort of working claims or the working compensation within this.
被害者のキャリア女性は後にこの羽田健一を民事裁判で損害賠償請求裁判を起こしました。
And following this, the woman who was the victim of this harassment filed a civil case calling for compensation against Mr. Haneda.
通常であればセクハラ事件を起こした人物が2番目に大きな署の署長になることなどありえないのに、彼は署長になりました。
And usually someone who has been the target of the filing of a sexual harassment suit would never be appointed to the top position of such a large, or the second largest police department within the prefecture. However, he has indeed been put in this very senior position despite this.
この人事について記者から質問を受けた滋賀県警の本部長は、適切な人事、適材適所であるというふうに苦しい言い訳をしました。
And upon a question from the media in regards to the appointment of him in this position, someone from the headquarters of the Shiga Prefectural Police, when they were asked by the media, said that, well, he is a suitable person being put in the suitable position, but this is indeed very difficult to take.
以上です。
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all public information about Haneda-san. We're not libeling him, right?
この羽田さんについての情報はすべても公開されている情報でよろしいですね。Yes, it is public information.
All right, thank you. We have another question. This is also from Mr. Horvat, Andrew Horvat, again to Takenobu-san. Are the police worried about the possible rise of militant unions? In other words, Kannama may not be violent, but it is clearly more forceful than docile company unions. Moreover, this union is not a company union, but an industrial union. Is there a rise in the number of industrial unions? So, in other words, I think if we reverse it, is there a rise in the number of industrial unions? And are the authorities and the police worried about militant unions? Thank you.
次は同じ記者からまた竹信さんに対する質問なんですけれども、質問の中で2つの部分があります。まず1つ、カンナマというのはその産業としての組合である、その企業の中の組合という特徴があるというお話があったんですけれども、そのような組合が増えてきているということを、政府側または警察などが恐れているというような背景がありますでしょうか。また暴力的な組合ではないにしても、やはり他の静かな組合よりも力を使って訴えていくようないわゆるミリタントユニオンというような表現もできるかと思うんですけれども、そのような組合が増えてくることも、警察などが恐れているというようなことがあるというふうに思いますでしょうか。
それはそういった組合が増えているとは言えませんが、ただポイントとしては非正規労働者が日本では4割近くまで増えているわけですね。でこういう人たちというのは企業別組合からは事実上排除されていることがほとんどのケースがそうです。なので最低賃金でしか賃金は上がらないというそういう状況に置かれているわけです。
So I won't necessarily say that there is an increase in these industry-based unions. However, we are seeing, of course, there is a situation in Japan where 40% of workers are so-called irregular workers, hiseki workers as well, and they are therefore excluded from being part of these company-based unions, meaning that they are forced or they have no other choice but to still continue with the very lowest wages and so on.
でカンナマ支部は、日々雇用の運転手も組織しているという意味では、そのような、企業内労組に所属できないような働き手を組織する組織方法を取ってきており、これが一般化していけば、非正規の労働条件を引き上げるための労働組合が増えていく可能性がある。現に日本でもユニオンという形でそういった組織の仕方を取っている組は増えてきています。ということを考えていくと、非常にそれは警戒すべきものであるというふうに考えてもおかしくはないということだと思います。
And when we consider that Kannama, for example, was also organizing daily laborers, drivers who are employed on a day-to-day basis and so on as well, and these are people who, of course, cannot join union actions or activities within company unions there as well. The fact that they are being organized in this is something which means that if this were to become more of a general situation, a generalized situation, then it would also be looking at how to improve the conditions of those people who are employed in these kind of irregular forms of employment as well. And there is indeed more of an increase in such groups who are working for labor rights in regards to these kind of workers, which are known as union in katakana in Japanese as well. So therefore, this is perhaps something that they are viewing with some concern with the increase of these kinds of groups.
もう一つ重要なことは、日本の企業は大手が下請けをたくさん作って、その下請けにいろんな末端の労働者を事実上管理させていくという方式を取ることによって、自分たちの労務管理を免除する、逃れることができる仕組みを取ってきているわけですよね。で、カンナマ支部はそのようなその下請けといいますか小さい会社を飛び越えて、その上にそこと取引をしている大手に対しても要求をしていくという形で労働条件を上げてきているんです。でこれをやると大手はそれまで取ってきていた下請けを使って自分の労働者と経営者としての責任を逃れるということが非常にしにくくなる。これは非常に警戒されておかしくないことなんですね。なのでそのような方式のその会社の直接な雇用者を飛び越えて労使交渉をするというようなことを抑え込みたいということは当然あったはずで、しかも今アウトソーシングがどんどん増えていますから、ここでそれをきちんと抑え込んでおくというような動機がなかったとは言えないと思います。
And one more important fact is that within this is the way things are done in Japan. Of course, the companies are using subcontractors and subcontractors on top of that and having the laborers within that sort of layering there as well, which is a way indeed to ensure that they are kept immune or able to avoid having workers directly under their own responsibility and control in that regards as well. But Kannama, for example, was also involved in our negotiation with representing small companies and going beyond just the small companies, but also bringing their demands to the level of the larger companies on behalf of the workers on the lower basis there as well, and had indeed had effective success in improving the workers' conditions through these kinds of methods as well. So when we consider the fact that big companies had been using these levels of subcontractors in order to keep their own responsibility not held to question, not held to account, the methods of unions such as Kannama means that it is more difficult for them to avoid this. Therefore, it could be considered indeed that perhaps they do have this kind of concern about the practices of Kannama or similar unions as well. In addition to this, the fact that Kannama, for example, would go beyond these small levels and so on in their bargaining and negotiations is something that these kinds of large companies or employers would want to avoid, because it means, of course, that they are stronger in their bargaining and negotiations as well. As we see more and more cases of outsourcing and so on as well, I think that we cannot deny that perhaps that is also a motivation behind these kinds of situation.
Thank you for that very comprehensive answer. We're out of time, actually. We're over time. But just let me ask Kaido Sensei one question, which is quite an important one. There's been 2 not guilty verdicts in this in the prosecution so far, which is quite unusual in Japan, right? So I wonder if that suggests to you, as a legal expert, whether the authorities have overreached, whether they are overreaching in this case, whether they have gone too far.
次、海藤先生への質問ね、これで最後にしたいと思うんですけれども、今回の一連の中でその無罪判決が2件あったというふうに認識をしているんですけれども、これは日本では非常に珍しいことと言えるとも思います。でこの無罪判決が出されたということは、当局側が やりすぎたといいますか、その自分たちの決めを超えたような形でこれ弾圧しようとしていたということを意味しているのでしょうか。
はい、事件の中身からして無罪になったことは僕は当然だとは思うんですけれども、日本の裁判所ではなかなかその当然のことが実現していません。でも今回の場合、2つのケースで無罪判決が出たということは、裁判所の全体ではないけど裁判所の一部にこの、神生に対する刑事事件というものが何か異常な力学が働いていて間違った起訴がされているというふうに認識されたんだろうと思うんですね。でそういう考え方が広まっていけば、この事件の虚構というものが明らかになるかもしれない。でもたくさんの有罪判決も出ていますから、そういう考え方は残念ながらまだ裁判所の多数派とはなってないと思いますけれども。
I think if we look at the contents of these cases, it is only natural that they are found not guilty. However, it's a situation that usually in Japanese courts, it's not necessarily the case that what is natural is indeed actually implemented within the decisions of the courts. But the fact that there have been these two non-guilty verdicts, I think shows that at least part of the courts are recognizing the fact that within these kandama cases and so on, there has been this wrong prosecution, and that indeed it has been going too far in that regards as well. And if this kind of acknowledgement, this kind of recognition will continue to spread further, I think more and more information about this case will be coming clear from there. However, that being said, there have also been numerous guilty verdicts also issued within this as well. So we cannot say that this has yet reached the majority within the courts.
Well, thank you very much to the three speakers, Mieko Takenobu, Takeshi Koyano, and Yuichi Kaido, for coming to the club today and giving us such a comprehensive view of the dispute. I found the dispute so remarkable, so astonishing that this could happen, that a union could be crushed in this way. And especially as Takenobu-san says, that the media takes very little interest in this case, which has such profound implications for the Constitution, for the rule of law. So I do hope that today's presser will prompt more journalists to try and cover it if possible. Thank you very much to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.